Hello, and welcome to the Angus and Pete Show. Views and opinions are strictly those of the presenters and their guests and should not be taken as advice. Goodness knows, we're not qualified to advise you about anything. Side effects may include mild amusement and occasional enlightenment with feelings of embarrassment, apathy, disappointment, and pity.
Welcome to episode 31. I'm Angus and Pete.
And I'm Pete Brown, and we are the Angus and Pete Show.
The place where you could listen to two guys chatting about the riveting world of customer engagement.
That's customer engagement, otherwise known as call centre, contact centre, customer service, customer experience, CX, or whatever else you're calling it this week.
And if you want to find more about us, then just check us out on LinkedIn. So, Pete, where are we with the Angus and Pete Show? Because I'm starting to lose track.
I think we've decided that episode 29, the Newsbeat episode, was our last standalone episode of season 1. I think we're big enough now to have seasonal breaks.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
When you're a high-performing artist, you have to season things up a little bit, don't you? And I'm not talking about salt and pepper, Angus. I'm talking about proper production seasons.
We're not breaking up. We're just taking a pause.
Do not panic. Anyway, episode 29 was the last standalone episode. And in episode 30, we did that whistle-stop tour, which was a bit of an index, a bit of a reminder for people that had forgotten, and a bit of an advert for people that never bothered to bloody listen in the first place. So that's where we are. I don't know. Now, what do you think?
Okay, so I think for all those lazy buggers that have an attention span of a goldfish, those that can't sit still long enough to listen to a full episode, I think we need to do some short recaps.
I think you're right.
We can group episodes together that have a common theme, see if we can keep it punchy, to the point, and hopefully we won't lose them.
Okay, so we'll do a few of those episodes to keep our listeners going while we decide whether we're going to do season 2. Have we decided whether we're going to do season 2?
Not yet.
Not yet, we haven't. Do you know what? Listeners, give us some feedback. Should we, shouldn't we, or do you just not care? Let us know. Should we do season 2? Should we do this again, or have you had enough?
Maybe we should just run a poll on LinkedIn as well, and then people can vote.
That's not a bad idea. Maybe we should do that. Look out for that poll. This will be our first recap episode. That's what we're going to call them, right? We're going to call them recap episodes.
Yeah. Let's dive into some top tips from episode 13, Pitch Perfect, and episode 18, On Your Marks, Get Set, Demo. What that really talks about, those two episodes, was how sellers should behave in front of buyers.
How do I make my customer experience, contact centre sales pitch stand out and be different? Because it's all about being different, right?
Yeah, it's all about being different. I mean, it's a mega challenge because, let's be honest, most vendors are saying the same thing. They're just changing the colour of the label on the outside.
Right. So technology is normalising. It's becoming increasingly similar, if not identical. And that's reflected in the messaging. So the real differentiator, I suppose, is who you buy from and the way you feel about them.
Yeah. It's really how people behave and also how they perceive. It's absolutely about building relationships and making sure that the buyer has that feeling of assurance that says they're not taking a risk. Organizational credibility is absolutely fundamental, especially if they're buying something as vital as contact center technology or trying to put in a customer experience platform, because that's the company's main customer interface. When it comes to buying it, people buy from people they trust.
There's something else here as well. As sellers, we always talk about the sales process, don't we? How many times do you hear people talk about the buying process? Guess what? Buyers don't give a shit about your sales process. They are absolutely hyper-focused and fixated on their buying process, their business case, the way they evaluate things, that ROI word again, minimizing risk. And salespeople often forget this. In fact, salespeople always forget this, largely with the support of their management, who bang on about short-term forecasting, internal agendas, and really don't focus on the buying process, which is ultimately what gets you the order, right? You simply have to put yourself in the buyer's shoes and help them through their journey, not drag them through yours.
I think that's spot on. But let's focus a bit on that personal agenda, because everybody's got to recognize that buyers are human beings. And as individuals, we all prioritize what's best for us. That fear of messing up is much more powerful as a motivator than missing out.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing you do not want to do is land in the shit for making the wrong decision. So as sellers, if you don't reduce that perception of complexity, you know, the stress of doing this and the anxiety, then the safe option is no decision.
Mm-hmm.
So no decision often becomes that most attractive option. And I think the biggest competitor for salespeople, the sellers, is apathy and maintaining the status quo.
Particularly when everything looks the same, right? Particularly when the technology is all normalizing. So with all that in mind, how do you actually build a pitch for a buyer once you've managed to get their attention?
I think that's easy. It's all summed up in one statement. And that is, people want to be told what to buy.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want a million options. So, you know, if as a seller you've managed to get in the door and build some trust, then use that trust. Buyers will respond really well to a very clear recommendation. Also, from your perspective as a seller, it shows you've got courage, confidence, and an opinion, which is really important early in the sales cycle. So what you've got to do is make it easy. It's the path of least resistance, and it takes the pressure of the decision making away.
I remember discussing something else in one of those episodes, which was all about how too much information is a bad thing. It's as bad as too little information. Do you remember we spoke about Colin Powell?
Yeah.
The American Secretary of Defense at some point in the past. And he spoke about this 40-70 rule, which basically said, if you have 40% or less of the available information, you're working on guesswork. But what he also said was if you get to 70% and keep going, 70% plus, you're into the realms of striving for perfection and procrastination, too much information. When it comes to general decision making, 50, 60, 70% of the information is enough for most people to take the next step forward in the process. We should remember this. How many times the sellers overload, overburden, want to tell the customer everything about everything. They just get confused. It's all about the balance. And enough is enough.
Especially if you try and do it in the first meeting, which is what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I mean, this is absolutely crucial. Sellers have got to resist the temptation to provide loads of options. If you think about it, options equals confusion. Maybe that's a good way of summarizing it. Too many options equals confusion. Our whole industry, the whole CX industry, has now tended to make things incredibly complicated. And when you provide all those choices, all you're doing is just overwhelming your buyer and making them less likely to commit. It's that paradox of choice. Netflix paradox, which happens in most households when somebody just sits on the sofa and just scrolls and scrolls and scrolls and can't decide what the hell they're going to watch.
There's nothing to watch. We brought a bit of science, didn't we, into the whole thing when we spoke about Sheena Iyengar and Mark Lepper's experiment around the jam shop, or jelly, as I believe you call it in the United States of America. They started off offering 24 options for their customers, all on a little table outside their shop. And people stopped and they looked and they tasted, but they didn't buy as much as was hoped. And what they then did was reduced those 24 options to 6. And something amazing happened. They sold 10 times more product with reduced options. It's totally counterintuitive, but you just said it. Options equals confusion. So less is truly more. Is jam or jelly the same as selling a contact centre?
No, but there are lots of options. And if you show too many options, you're knackered.
Ultimately, there's a value proposition and a product, right? Make clear recommendations, keep the options clear, keep the options minimal, and give the buyer a chance to make a decision.
What you've got to do is help them join the dots. What we said in that episode, if I remember correctly, is do not put a slide up with a complex diagram in the first 10 slides. You can lose them. They won't understand it. And if they did, they don't care because they're thinking about themselves. They don't care about architectures and speeds and feeds. They care about what does it do for me, not what it is.
Yeah.
Because the buyers are being measured on outcomes these days. And they don't care how sexy your technology is. And when you're in that sales cycle, there's always a right time for it, but keep the techie slides for emergencies. Don't lead with them. So if an IT person snuck into the first meeting, then you've got them in your back pocket, but don't use them.
Right, exactly. And that all leads on to something else, which is those slides of bullet points that you put up, they're just statements, and they're your statements. They're not real for the customer. They've got to believe it. They've got to buy into it. And actually, what buyers want to hear are stories that they can relate to, stories that are based on real world examples. And we've said this more than a few times. When we take our badges off and we go back to being human beings at the end of the day, we're all consumers. We all buy from the same people. We all buy the same products. We've all got mobile devices. We're all doing the same things. We're all looking for the same experience. It's the easiest sales pitch in the world, but not if you bang on about technology and bullet points. Tell stories that people relate to, and they will understand the value proposition of your CX products. You need to help them visualize your solution. You need to help them understand its impact on their business. And it's the easiest sales pitch in the world if you make it real and if you make it relatable.
It's common sense. Nobody enjoys reading text slides. They're much more interested in what you've got to say. But there's another part to this. So let's talk about the dreaded product demo. You know, when a customer says, show me the product or show me how it works, what do you do? We've all seen those absolutely frightening, scary demos that turn into 2-hour training sessions where you're trying to show every bell, whistle and switch in your product and you're forcing it on the audience literally until their ears bleed.
And it gets worse in this hybrid world when you're doing things remotely, audiences on flat screens. If you can't hold their attention for 3 to 5 minutes, you're stuffed. And you're not going to do that by banging on about every button and every feature that's sitting in front of them. So it's easy for them to just swivel their chair, start doing their emails, and you lose them. Less is more. So in the same way that you tell stories about your product, bringing it to life with demos, which is another big part of how you behave in front of a customer, is really about showing quick, engaging, compelling demonstrations of scenarios that actually mean something to the person that you're sitting in front of. And if they want to know more, they'll ask. They'll take you into the detail. It's a buying signal. Don't give too much away up front. Don't let everything out of the bag at once. Tease them. Leave them yearning for more, Angus.
Now, if I remember correctly, we identified 6 different types of demos, not just one of them. There was the intro or taster demo.
Yeah.
That real concise, generic, bite-sized and really quick. It's there to start the conversation. Yeah. Then there was the art of the possible demo. And this is really a discovery tool to help buyers articulate their needs, especially when you've got buyers that don't know really what they want. And use examples from other industries so that you get over objections. Then there's the sales demo. That comes down the line. Tailored, focused on the pain points. You must know what those pain points are. Don't assume. It really supports your proposal and positions you against the competition. It makes your business case come to life.
Yeah.
Then there are 3 more, I think, if I remember correctly. Technical demo. This is the one for the smart asses and the technical teams. It's that deep dive into integration, flexibility, implementation. And this is totally separate from the sales demo.
Right. And that's really important because you see a lot of people conflate the two, and you see a lot of buyers trying to get a technical and a commercial audience in the same room. It's a dangerous place. It's not good for the buyer. It's not good for the seller. It confuses things. So if you can influence that at all, keep your technical demos and your sales demos separate. Do them on the same day, do them in separate sessions, and make absolutely sure people understand what they're looking at.
No, they're both appropriate, but it's all at the right time. And then there were 2 types of demos that nobody thinks about. Because they all think we got the order, we finished demoing at that point in time. There's the look at what you bought demo. And that's after the sale to align pre-sales and post-sales expectations for the new team taking over, because it will be a new team. The execution of the implementation is always a new team generally. It shows the full scope capabilities, the art of the possible, not just what's being initially deployed. And it's also pretty fundamental stakeholder management. And then the last one, the training demo, use this to provide context for technical people by rerunning the intro demos and remind them why this is a good idea. Because remember when we talked about RFPs, What gets asked for and actually what gets implemented are two different planets.
What we learned was the key for any demo is to know exactly where you are in the buying process so that you can select the right approach. And there are at least 6 approaches. We've just spoken about them. And also, don't assume that buyers know what they want. They don't. Remember, we sell CX and contact center solutions all the time. Buyers probably buy them once in a job role, maybe once in a career, right? And when they do, it's high octane, high risk, frightening stuff because it's core to the business. So let's just remember that. Also, in the same way that buyers want to be told what to buy, in many cases, they want to be told how to buy it. So we can influence, we can be helpful by being quite assertive, but fundamentally know your audience. A 10-minute slot with a CFO needs a totally different approach to a demo than a 2-hour session with a business analyst. And if you get them confused, you will fail. Absolutely every time. Whoever you're in front of, make it interactive, make it practical, make it relatable to real world scenarios, bring it to life with stories, and always remember, to focus on that good old fashioned FAB thing, features, advantages, benefits, but crucially tie it back to the pain that you're trying to solve. And if you don't know what the pain is, you won't sell anything.
Okay, so coming back to the fear of messing up, how do we help buyers reduce that risk, that perception of complexity, stress, fear of screwing it up?
So first of all, understand the risks that buyers truly perceive. And they'll talk about the big business stuff, but a lot of it is about them. It's about, yes, risk to the business, but far closer to their heart is damage to their reputation, making their lives easier, and ultimately not getting fired. Because that happens when people cock up, right? So our CX and customer engagement solutions in the cloud are almost designed to help minimize risk. Your strategy should be clear. Start small, get some quick wins before expanding. If you offer commercial guarantees and flexible contracts, buyers feel less risk. And it stuns me that many vendors are still going down the traditional route. They've got a very flexible cloud platform, a very flexible commercial environment that goes with it, yet they're still trying to sell big, bang, one hit, buy it now solutions.
You know why? Because sales guys are trying to blooming hit their quota.
Thinking about pacing the customer, thinking about ability of business people just to absorb all the information you've got is important. Think about risk, think about helping them, and don't overload them with too much information too early.
There's another one. Avoid that word transformation. I mean, it generally scares the hell out of business buyers. One, because it's huge, but also we've been doing transformation in the last 10 years and they've had enough of it to last a lifetime.
They have.
I mean, it's been flogged. That horse has been flogged to death. So what they actually want to hear about is baby steps, a journey. No, evolving, not a revolution. Because ultimately, they want to minimize risk for themselves in the business, but mostly for themselves. Most people work to live, not live to work. People should actually remember that sometimes.
They certainly should. So let's summarize what we've just spoken about. I'll start off. Personal agendas make the world go round, and buyers are no different. Right? Buyers are worried about the personal consequences of their decision. So understand that fear of messing up and look like you care and think about how you can mitigate it.
Yeah, when you're engaging with a buyer, don't give too many options. Make a clear recommendation instead and realize and remember that the paradox of choice is real. Remember the jam.
However clever your technology is, however wonderful the stuff that you're selling, remember, people don't care about the technology itself. What they really care about is the outcomes it delivers and what it does for them as a business, them as an individual, and their customers.
Yeah, and don't shoot yourself in the foot with bullet points. I mean, that's a really good phrase to remember. Tattoo this on your left arm. Tell compelling stories that are relatable and help buyers visualize the solution in action for themselves.
When it comes to demos, understand where you are in the sales process and make sure you take the right approach. We covered it with those 6 steps. You may have other ideas. Make sure what you're doing speaks to, literally and figuratively, the person or people that are sitting in front of you.
And finally, and this is huge for all the pre-sales engineers out there, for sellers as well, prepare before you go in. If you ask for a demo, do some discovery, ask some clarifying questions like, what do you want this demo to show and do? What are the timescales? What's the opportunity? And the most important one, how does the customer or the buyer articulate their requirement for the demo?
Right.
Bit of qualification. So pre-sales engineers, when the sellers come to you and say, want a demo, do some discovery. And if the salesperson doesn't know, tell them to bugger off and go and find out. This will save you a load of time.
Absolutely. No discovery, no demo. Thanks, Phil.
So I think that's a pretty good summary, Pete. This wraps up this episode.
So we'll be back next time with another recap in episode 32.
In the meantime, follow the Angus and Pete show on LinkedIn for news and notifications. And please message us directly to tell us what you want us to talk about in Series 2. And keep that post bag bulging, please.
Well, assuming we're going to do Series 2, Angus, because we are waiting for people to tell us whether it's worth it or not.
I'm an optimist.
You are. So am I. In the meantime, remember, the show is available on all your favourite podcast platforms. So listen, like, subscribe, and share to help us spread the word and feed Angus's gigantic ego.
Talking about egos.
Yes.
Pete, it might be a recap episode, but there's still time for Joke of the Week.
Okay. So you remember right at the top of this episode, you said something about people with the attention span of a goldfish.
Yep.
Well, here we go. Now, this one isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea, but hey-ho. Donald Trump's advisors tell him that he needs to get in touch with nature to help him develop his empathetic skills.
Okay.
That's the ability to show empathy, Angus. And he has a top secret meeting with a top zoologist. And they're standing in front of this huge aquarium. Picture the scene. And the zoologist puts his finger on the glass and starts to move it in a figure 8. And the fish start to follow his finger. It doesn't matter how big or small he makes it. The fish are all wafting about in the aquarium following this figure 8 pattern. And Donald looks at the zoologist and the fish and says, how do you do that? And the zoologist says, well, Mr. President, a higher species of intelligence will always impose itself on a lower species of intelligence and influence its behaviour. And before he knew it, Donald walks over to the aquarium and the zoologist turns to see what's going on. And after a few moments, Donald's standing there, slowly opening and closing his mouth and blowing bubbles out of his arse.
It's bloody brilliant.
Well, I'm sure the whole world will agree with you. Anyway, cheers, Angus.
Cheers, Pete.
Thanks for tuning in to the Angus and Pete Show. Remember, it's based on the personal views and opinions of the hosts and their guests. If you're feeling aggrieved or litigious, take a chill pill. There's already enough stress in the world. Don't forget to follow our page on LinkedIn and subscribe on your favourite podcast platform for more episodes. We'll see you next time. Oh, and tell your friends.